We always start early to allow you to fill up. So while y'all filling up, I'm gonna get myself situated. Say a couple of pieces as we start our build. First off, I always want to say Divine Rising. I was going to say that Divine Rising because we're taking ourselves. Spirit want to come through early today. We're taking ourselves out of the aspects and the time loops that have been placed within the original programming. We're taking ourselves out of the programming by acknowledging those triggers. So as I find my lighter. By acknowledging those triggers to the original trauma. Remember, the trauma is based upon the old cause. So if we only look at the trauma as our cause, the effect alters. The effects can remain the same within that space because you have not found the original cause, the original setting, the original mindset, or the original tone that put you into that space in the first place. Tonight, we're going to be getting into, as I'm adjusting my microphone, make sure all my levels are right. Okay. Yep, everything's on. We're going to be getting into time loop continuous. Breaking the triggers and breaking the original programming. Because as I always say, you have to first acknowledge the origination of how it started to even get to breaking that chain. That alchemical chain, the spirit is with me hard. To break those chains, to break those aspects that led you to where you're at now, the space that you're in, the mindset, everything that you're doing. In order to step through that, you have to be able to acknowledge that trigger, that trauma. Things like everything from the way you spend money, everything, everybody's talking about, we need economic plans and we need leaders and we need all these things. We need all these things. When the chance arises for you to do something, when you want to say that, a way to trigger that and knock that off so you actually can get the benefit of not just feeling good. We say things based upon just simply feeling good. It feels good to be able to say, we need a leader, we need an economic plan. It sounds good to say these things because you already know in your belief is, as long as I can go by what everybody else is saying, I can empower this belief. You are unconsciously feeding the thought forms that have led to that space anyway. I always hear people talk about archons and all this deviousness and all these devious plans and plots and all of these aspects. Take this thought into your mind. If the first law of the universe is mentalism, the mind is all and the universe is mental. Therefore, what I think becomes. If that is my initial, I need my hat. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. We're in tune. If the mind is all and the universe is mental, and what I think I shall see, it shall become. Why would I acknowledge, or how is it that I'm able to acknowledge something as it not being a benefit to me? Remember last week I got into everything that you speak should be a benefit to you. It should be in your favor. This is going past, this is understanding the aspect of seeing a narcissist in the human aspect. And then you're going past the narcissist and understanding that you're not to be upset when you meet a narcissist or someone that has a narcissistic quality. What you're first able to acknowledge in the forgiveness is there is an imbalance within their mind, making them act within half of themselves. A narcissist is based upon the knowledge they have of a person, the understanding they have of a person, the sociopath, the social, the political, and all of these aspects of humanity that they can use to get their gain. They're only using the knowledge aspect, the intellectual aspect. You look at a movie like, what's a movie that I just recently seen? The movie The Invisible Man. I just recently went through and watched that. It's a narcissistic, he had a narcissistic complex that based on being intellectual, he created a way to be seen without being seen. So you only can go based upon the programs or what is reinforced based upon programs. So if my mindset is only acting based upon the program, not the program, based upon the program or the archetype of the routine of what happens within that space, I cannot see its purpose. Cultivating your purpose. Cultivating your purpose is that aspect of learning. Cultivating your purpose is you're learning. Learning why you're in a certain situation that you're in. Learning from that situation in order to take that, what you have learned, that variable which you have learned, and applying it to your new formula for your new life. We're going to get into money. We're going to get into aspects. I'm going to use the allegory aspect of money. I'm going to use the allegory aspect. We're going to get into hypersexualization and sex. We're going to get deep into a lot of different topics, and I'm going to announce the topics because I am actually setting up for Facebook Live, my first God Hour podcast live edition, the after hours aspect. Still tune in for the God Hour podcast. Still dropping 6 a.m. Season 3 is starting. Season 3 is coming in. Season 3. I might start at episode 1 or I might say episode 23. I don't know yet. That 323 sounds very good to me. If it just flows. But yeah. So looking at this aspect of your mind and where your mind is at and understanding the programs, just because you denounce one program does not stop the sub-programs that have been created behind it. The initial program for Black people would be, y'all need to put the good book down. The reason why so many people can come into their consciousness, come into their awareness, come into their awakening, into their enlightenment, is because there is no tool or aspect of context for them to come in contact with to help them be able to implement the new information. So you'll go through this aspect based upon fundamentals. We use religion. I use Christianity and Catholicism. All of it is Catholicism. All of it's Catholicism. If you're a Christian, Baptist, non-denominational, whatever you were, it's all under Catholicism. Everything else is a sub-program created from the original program. And then when you go deeper into it, that Catholicism is a sub-program that was uploaded with a virus because it was created from an original source. This is the aspect of understanding the original causes and effects. If you don't understand the original cause, you're only looking at the effect. You're thinking the effect is the cause. So you're thinking about, I don't know where that came from. You're thinking about first generation. First generation has the original seed. First generation has the original seed, has the soul. For the great old ones, we are the ones with the souls. For the great old ones, the chaos beings, I'm a chaos being. So that's why I can sit here and say I celebrate COVID-19. It brings chaos. I feed from chaos. I am separated from the aspects of emotion to be able to observe what happens, what it does, what it causes. When you get to that point, when you're able to look at it from that point, everything changes. But let's take into the aspect of that time loop. This space within your mind, this thing that happened over and over and over again, as I hold my wand. This thing that happens over and over and over again. Why does this keep happening to me? Why does this keep happening to me? Why can't I meet a new? Why can't I find a great man? Why can't I find a great woman? Why can't I find something better for myself? Because you haven't found yourself. The reason why you cannot find what you're trying to find is because you have not first found yourself. And even then, after finding yourself, now you must learn yourself. There's steps, there's levels, there's a process. First, you must find yourself. Find that you were never lost. Then you must learn that you were never lost. Then you must, after you have found that you were never lost, you have learned why you were never lost. Guess what you're doing again? You're learning the losses. You're learning from the lost time, the lost aspects of yourself, the lost books of your story, the lost books of your universe. The lost books of your universe. You are that God archetype. You are that goddess archetype. But you have to change your programming, your mental aptitude based upon the fundamental environment that you were put in. You're so shut down because you're so far ahead, you are behind. There is shit that you have forgot that you need to remember before you can even engage into the higher levels of yourself. There are the lost chapters of yourself that you have to study first before you even get to the next level. You've been here for many, 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 many lifetimes. Some have been here for many, many lifetimes and cycles. Some have been here for many lifetimes and cycles and they remember what they were supposed to do. And then that's the difference between the ones that initiate and the one that's coming in now to the highest level. But yeah, so when your mindset is stuck, we're going to start with the aspect. I'm going to use the allegory of money. Always a great allegory to start with because money is energy. The first program in your mind when you're thinking about white supremacy, which is nothing to do with black supremacy. I know that I am supreme based upon the aspects that I stand on the shoulders and I stand in the energy and above the energy of the ones that built the pyramids. I stand in the energy and in that space of the ones that created this world, created this space, created this plane, created everything that was in creation. That mindset alone sets the pattern for everything else. This helps me reinforce when I studied and when I still study, that this is an inherent flaw. You want things to work here, but it's an inherent flaw. So when you put in this work to change things in this dynamic, it doesn't work. It may get a little bit of a result, but it doesn't work. Last week when I talked about blackface, I was telling you about civil rights is Black Lives Matter and LGBT behind that. That's the new civil rights. Because they learned how to use your face to get what they want. They know how to use your face to get what they want. Your face card, your face value. You're the only one that doesn't understand how to use your face card to your own value, to your own benefit. This is the aspect when you study Morris science and they give you the law and they tell you about your social security card and they tell you about your birth certificate. They're giving you information. This is how you need to look at information when you study off all of that. They're giving you information to cultivate your natural prosperity, your natural wealth, your natural abundance. That's how you look at the information when you take it in. If you're looking at the information for what it is right there in front of you, you'll never catch what you need to catch from it. And you'll be doomed to repeat yourself. You'll be sitting there, that 45-year-old, that 65-year-old man, that 60-year-old woman still arguing to the top of her lungs about white people being devils. And then you look for the contradiction. White people are demons. White people are the devil. But I understand what the devil archetype is. So why would I give them such power? Once you understand what something is, once you truly understand what something is, and understand that the basis of it originates lies with you, why would you give anybody else your power? Once you have tapped into yourself, once you start making the moves that you need to make, advancing yourself, taking yourself to the next level, why would you take anything less than from your creative standpoint? Once you become the God is just simply the first level. God simply means the creator. God simply means the creator. You have to step out of that. Bobby Hemmett talked about that. Brother Panic talks about that. Phil Valentine talks about that. You have to go above that level. It's cool. It's still cool for me that I know that I can create from my light body of being a God in the flesh. This is my God body now. This is the aspect of being the God body. We don't get into a lot of this different sciences tonight. This is the God body. Arm, leg, head, arm, leg, God body. This is the God body archetype. This is the creator. This is my image of how I create, what I create, when I create. This is the image of the creator in my life. I have the balance and the androgynous balance of my masculine and feminine archetypes, my energies, and in focus based upon what I came down here to fucking do. I had to learn that new program first before I step to the next program. You cannot skip steps, because you'll be able to tell. Motherfuckers can tell when you go. I'm gonna put it like this. I listen to wording in 90% of what people say when they ask me for things. I said that shit right. I guess right. I listen to 90% of what people say when they ask me about a service, a reading. Now I'm doing the spiritual baths. Orders this came out of this boom as soon as I dropped it. And that's another aspect we're going to get into. Spiritual baths, whatever it may be, whatever service that they ask me for, I listen to what they say. I observe everything they say, how they say it, the wording, how the humility in them, because I understand the humility in myself reflects in others when they come to me to ask me a question. I do all of these things before I make any other moves. And there's a reason that I do this before anybody else makes any other moves. Because this sets the tone for how I'm going to interact and how I'm going to speak to this person. Do I speak to this person as an initiate, or do I speak to this person as an adept? Even if I'm speaking to an adept, somebody that's been working with energy and just wants to take it to that next level, I still give them the same amount of information that I give an initiate. I give them a same amount of information that I would give an initiate. Here is the reason why. When you allow yourself, and this is how this money aspect comes into. If I sit here and I tell you about money, and the simple math behind money is you don't have 100 till you have 200. That means you don't have the initial 100 till you have 200. Or you don't have 200 until you have 400 or 600 or however many it is. You don't have that one. You don't have that 50. You don't have that 100. You don't have that 200. You don't have that 300 until you have 100, 200, 600, 800. You got to learn the math. You got to learn your cycles of your math. Once you have accepted this new program of thought into your mind, now you must program every aspect and sub-program. You must create the sub-programs to step into that space. Now you have to create the sub-program to create the sub-programs to reinforce the original program. The program is embedded into your subconscious. The sub-programs are what are built into your psyche. These are the knowledge that you put into the masculine aspect and the feminine you put into the nurturing aspect. All of the knowledge that you have based upon, that's knowledge. I don't have 100 till I have 2. That's the knowledge. That imprints into the feminine aspect of nurturing, and that's wisdom. That's that aspect of yourself. So when you're creating this space over here on this side, when you're creating that space, the knowledge coincides with the wisdom of this space, because now the feminine aspect kicks in nurturing and the wisdom, because you have to remember that the God leads, but the goddess guides. The God leads, the king leads, but the queen guides. This is the aspect going back and forth. The goddess is the wisdom. The goddess is the one that nurtures. The goddess is the one that does that aspect of creation to that. While the God provides the spark to that knowledge, the spark or that knowledge or that information or that light to the surface to create. Man works with his hands. So if I give you the aspect about you don't have 100 till 200, let's just put together some numbers. Let's say every month I make $4,000. Let's just say every month I make 4 G's. Speaking into existence. Let's say every month I make 4 G's. In reality, I've only made $2,000. In reality, I've only made $2,000. In my mind, I create the scenario, I've only made $2,000 because the other half of that other $2,000 that I made is not real. It goes into the company. My company made $2,000 and I made $2,000. So now I got $2,000 in each aspect. I got $2,000 to be nurtured. I got $2,000 in my knowing, $2,000 in my nurturing, and my wisdom. I have the wisdom to save $2,000. No matter what it is, I have the wisdom to save $2,000. So I take this aspect into my mind, I break it down even further. Now I have to create the sub-programs so I'm not tapping into that $2,000 over here. So now I have that basis set. I have $2,000. I make $2,000 a month profit. $2,000 goes into the company. We're not even going to worry about the company right now because it's doing exactly what it needs to do. I've done the programming for this space. This is the space that I have to manage and put together to match the frequency of what's coming into my space. So now I got $2,000 over here. My mind, now I create the sub-program in my mind. I don't have 2,000 until I got 4,000. So I only have 1,000 because I only have 1,000. I only have I only have a G on me because I only made $2,000. That becomes another sub program. So now that I have this sub program in my mind, I look at my list of bills. Let's say my bills, they total up to about $1,200 a month. Phone bills, all the aspects for my personal aspects. All that equals up to that. Supplies, keeping my hair cut, all that, keeping myself fly, food, all that shit. I'm saving a hell of a lot of money this month because I'm still on my fast until the end of the month. So I'm saving a hell of a lot of money on a lot of fucking food. But I'm spending hella amounts of money. I'm spending half that amount in water and coconut water and stuff like that. So let's say it's about $1,200. 1 second. All right, we have returned. So now I got $2,000 over here. I say $2,000 in energy in my currency. My cost of living is $1,200. So I had $1,200. I throw in contingencies. That's another. I throw in contingencies to all of my accounts. I always inflate my budget of what that contingency in your life in order to do that budget to stay out of that, fall out of that loop. So my contingencies, I might throw an extra $400 to that 12. So I know 12 for that's $1,600. So I now $1,600. I know I need $1,600 a month to operate comfortably. I need $1,600 a month at least to operate comfortably within my space and do what I need to do in my personal aspects. So now I got that $1,600 sitting over there in that side. That's what I know I need to make. From that $2,000, I've already taken away $1,000. From that other $1,000, I'm about to take away another $6,000. So that leaves me with $400. Programming the sub program. This is how you program the next sub program. So now that I got this $400 right here, I got the $1,600 over here. The $1,600 goes into my household account, my checking account. That is all the energy I have within that account. Anything outside of this $1,600 that is in this account, if it does not come up in my direct lines of how I use my energy throughout that month, I have a contingency of $400 just in case shit pops off and comes up. But other than that, I've learned to set my standard and my boundary. I set my standard at $1,200. I set my boundary at $1,600. That's my expenses. That's all that. This $400 now goes into my savings account or into my reserve. Now I understand because now this links into the sub program based upon the knowing what I have. This goes into the sub program or into my feminine aspect of wisdom, already remembers and is programmed in my subconscious. I don't have 400 until I have 800. I don't have 200 until I don't have 200 until I have 400. I don't have 400 until I have 800. I don't have 100 until I have 200. So that sub program is now programmed into my mind that when I look at my bank account and I see that I have $400 in my savings, my initial reserve, that's not $400. So if you got $400, no, I don't have $400. I don't have $400 because I don't have 800. There's not $800. I don't see an 8. So there's no 4. Forward thinking. You have to put yourself into that forward thinking aspect. So that's how you move forward thinking. So I have my account sitting over here. That is now maintained. This takes us out of the time loop of working check to check. This takes you out of the time loop of trying to survive, because you've already put in that shadow work. And if you haven't, this is also an aspect of letting you. This is going to bring up. This does one of two things when you take the information in. It's going to challenge your thought based on what you have worked on, or challenge you to use this idea. It's going to the information is going to come in. It's going to challenge you to think either on what you have to sacrifice and work on, or what level you are at. That's how the message works. It always challenges you to think. I don't care what you do as long as you're thinking. So you take that aspect. So when we're looking at that, okay, cool, 1,600. So I know every month out of the $2,000 that I make, I now have $1,600. In reality, I have $1,600. So I created another sub program. Now, every time that I make 2 G's a month, it's already programmed in my mind without me even thinking about it. It's embedded in my subconscious to move my energy first for myself. It doesn't matter what I have to challenge myself with. You can challenge yourself with and say, I'm about to buy a new car. I'm about to do this. These are just the lower level. These are just the lower level aspects that build up to the higher. I have all of these aspects in play in order for me to go to that next level. I have all of these aspects in play, triggered in play, so I can now, this is sustained. My energy is now sustained at this level. The only way that my energy can be sustained at this level is based upon what I've already done with my shadow work, me doing my shadow work, me being straight up with myself, me being real with myself, me gut checking myself. Now, these are the things that can come up. It's all about energy. These are the things that'll come up. Somebody can come up to you tomorrow, today, tomorrow, came up to you last week, came up to you whenever. And they can say to you, yo, I got an idea that can get you $1,000 a month, $1,000 a week. Someone can give you the idea that someone can give you $1,000 a month, a week. In your sub program already in your mind is, you're already thinking, this is how you got to create the scenario. This is how you create scenarios. You create this scenario in your mind. $1,000 a week is only $500 a day. $1,000 a week is only $500 a day. So it's not worth without further information. You're forcing yourself, you breaking yourself out of this pattern of searching for something to be easy. You're breaking yourself out of the pattern to do the bare minimum. Humanity longs for anything. Humanity always needs and wants. Humanity is a subcompartment or a flaw that only can take in so much before it needs to release. That's what you're learning from in the human aspect. You come down here, I don't care how much food you eat. At a point in time, you're going to have to go take a shit. I don't care how much knowledge and information you take in. At a point in time, you have to disperse that knowledge. I don't care what, you're always going through a cycle in the season. You have a season to learn, you have a season to learn, you have a season to put in that work. You have a season to learn, have a season to put in that work. You have these, that's how your seasons work. So you're always in an inherent handicap or an inherent flaw. That's the inherent flaw of this space. The flaw is not bad. The flaw, we have to look at flaws. We have to look at the insecurities in the purposing. When we look at a flaw, we think of a flaw and the insecurity being the same thing. An insecurity is an imbalance. A flaw is an imbalance. A flaw, I can be flawed in human. I was flawed in humanity based upon how I was dealing with things based as a tool, not using my God archetype as a tool. So it didn't matter how much information I took in, what I took in, what I spoke on, how I moved. It didn't matter what I was doing. I always came back to square one. I always came back to the $100 mark. When you start reprogramming your mind, when you actually start reprogramming your subconscious and going through the processes, you start seeing things change in your life. Different aptitudes do not work the way they used to work in your life. That's simply because you started changing your programming. It still can resonate with you and affect you because you have not removed the sub-program. So you still get stuck within a loop, or as I call them, polarities. That's how you get stuck in the polarities. Getting stuck in the polarity is some of the most, you get stuck in a polarity based upon picking a side instead of understanding how each side came together. It doesn't matter because your mind is naturally set to, at first, think about the programming that came into your mind. The first program that was put into our mind, who was the first person that indoctrinated you? Who was the first person that indoctrinated you? Who was the first person that told you it was hot, cold, shit was hot, shit was cold, don't do that, you can't fly, you can't do this? Who was the first person that shut down your imagination? Who was the first person to shut down your imagination? Told you that something was not the way it was supposed to be, or it was not, that was not how it was supposed to happen. First person that did it. That's the first person that you got to go research. I remember when I was little, and I remember when I was like a wee little kid. And I remember always seeing white kids. White kids could do whatever. Like, I remember seeing the little blonde hair white girl. You still see that same aspect. The little blonde hair, little white girl. She would be in the store with her mother, and she would have on cowboy boots, a dress, a toboggan, two different colors, and it didn't match. But their mother would let them explore the creativity of themselves based on an intellectual level, not under control. We were put into this genetic makeup based upon the original program that was put to us to have to be a certain way, speak a certain way, talk a certain way, act a certain way. We were put into that program. This program, the reason that this program stuck was based on the original programming that was already naturally inherently inside of you. You understood that there was an order. You inherently understood that there was an order. You inherently understood that there was a way to show and present yourself. You understood these things inherently. An ant, just like I always say, an ant does not need to be told how to be an ant. A dog does not need to be told how to be a dog. A dog will do what a dog does. You can train it to be obedient, but inherently it's still going to do what a dog does. You always go back to your natural programming. And when I speak on natural programming, I'm speaking on the natural program of your soul. The natural aspects of color, light, sound, vibration, rhythm, all of these aspects that are from the higher level, your higher senses, you're always trying to tap back into these things. So you'll always have an aspect or an ear for music. You'll always have an ear for art. You always had an ear for poetry, rhythm. You were always tapped into that universal rhythm, that universe being one song. You were always tapped into that. So everything that your soul wants to explain and exclaim itself, that's why you tapped into so many things. But because you didn't understand, you weren't an understanding, you unconsciously did it, so it never took root and programmed into your subconscious. What programmed into your subconscious was the trauma, the symbol, and the repetition. Trauma, symbols, repetition. That's what they use to program. They have no power other than the symbol, which is light, the repetition, which is the sound, and the trauma. No, the symbol is the light, the trauma is the sound, and the repetition is the rhythm. So if I know I keep giving you the same light, I keep giving you the same light, I keep giving you the same sound, that based off that light, bouncing off of that sound, bouncing off of this rhythm to this certain rhythm, I know you're going to stay in the same space. I know you're not going to graduate. If I fill that with subjective thought and give you the information right there in plain sight for you to actually listen to, but it's based upon an intellectual, and you're not an intellectual person. In humanity, you are based upon intellect. In your God self, you are based upon your genius. In your intelligence is what brings you into your alchemy. Your intelligence is what brings you into the alchemy, the sciences, the occult, the occultist aspect. That's what takes you into the higher aspects of interfacing with the energy. But since you're so fundamentally drawn down, you don't know how to budget that. You don't know how to budget your energy. So once you get your energy, you're so used to $2, you're so used to $100 that when you get the $1 million, when you go to the thousands and to the millions, and you go into these higher levels of energy, these higher levels of currency, you don't know how to use it. You don't know how to program it. You don't know how to program yourself. So you're using that as a tool, not knowing you're not using the tool properly, because you do not understand. My man Wally says the historical property, the historical aspects of what it was actually used for. You're crying cry talking about being in debt, needing an economic plan, but not understanding that economics, if the money is an illusion, and it can be created and destroyed and then recreated based on the coding, you typing into that code, then you don't understand how your energy works. You'll be in a player mode. You'll be in a creative player mode. I did the breakdown, that GTA breakdown. Your mindset gets stuck within the GTA concept. You're a player. So you program your avatar based upon the stuff that's in your environment, your resources. Based upon what? Survival is sustaining. So now that you are your player interfacing, and you don't understand that you are the observer or the coach, you don't know how to discipline yourself. Once you understand the disciplines, would you come in, drop that shade to the corner so I know you're coming in? Once you understand the discipline is what the coach does. The discipline administers the coach administers the disciplines. From the disciplines, once you have learned the disciplines, and you are now teaching programming your archetype, that sub-program, your archetype, your avatar, to move within that program, move within these disciplines, then you can now focus on being the owner. The owner is the chaos being. The owner is your chaos being. That's your alchemist. That's your occultist. The coach is the god. They know how to create the plays, create the moves, create the structure and the discipline based upon the energy that's coming down that the occultist now understands, occult mind now understands, the alchemy now can put together. You can now create from wherever space that you're in. Learning how to create that body of light. So now the play is now in the play, you're now in player mode. Your infrastructure must fall. Your old infrastructure must fall. It must come to an end in order for you to tap into your new energy. Your infrastructure based on being a player must fall in order for you to tap into your new energy. as the coach. Coaching yourself. Coaching yourself is the affirmations. Coaching yourself is setting the intentions, setting that play, setting that pick and roll, setting those plays. That's the coaching aspect. One thing that I noticed when they canceled the NBA, so they canceled the game for the players. They canceled shows for entertainers. They canceled their money. They canceled their currency, their way to make their energy. So they had to find another way. What that shows me in my space is, how can I benefit from this standstill? How can I benefit from what seems to be a standstill for the humans? It forces you to sit the fuck down and think. But if your mind's not programmed to think, it's only taught to take in information and funnel it through with your ego and your identity. I never could do that. I never could see this. How do you think you're going to get to the higher concepts of understanding? How can you sit there and program your mind to make the $1,600 a week that you need in that account? How can you program that $1,600 currency, that energy in that bank, and then have the reserve of the 400 and build that 400 up to that same 1,600, which isn't that hard? All you need is 4 months. All you need is 4 months. So if every month you make $1,200, you know you're about to make $1,600. You know $1,600 automatically goes away. In reality, you only have $400 a month to save. This is the aspect whenever you study anything with when you study anything with finances, your expenses are always supposed to be lower. It goes investments, savings, then expenses. Your expenses are always supposed to be lower than your investments. Your investments are always supposed to be higher. That knowledge is always coming from that higher level. Tapping into that knowledge and sacrificing for that knowledge. What are you sacrificing for that knowledge? You're sacrificing the human thought, that 1% we talked about last week, that 1%, that human thought, that sin, the byproduct of ignorance or the lack of knowledge. So I'm sacrificing my ignorance. I'm killing off my ignorance. I'm killing my humanity to better understand myself. And this leads you to the, hey, when I can smoke them on. This leads you to the higher aspect of the higher knowledge, the higher knowing, tapping into the higher information, how to interface with it. I had a thought. If you are within humanity and you're focused upon, ew, threesomes are nasty. I can never do a threesome. I can never have an orgy. I can never, why people want to be gay, that's not natural. And all of these aspects, you're missing the aspect of understanding why the fuck is in your place. Why you're missing key learning aspects. The key learning aspects is everything in front of you is something that you can learn from. A lot of people get stuck not learning from every aspect that they need to learn from because you get stuck based upon morality and traditionalism. And you lack your transparency. Whenever I remember when I was first doing a lot of studying, doing a lot of research in my earlier years, I remember I was looking at gay people. Ironically, yeah. Take this aspect right here. If I understand that it's based upon energy and everything is based on an imbalance, and I look at John. We'll say John. We'll use John because Constantine in the comics was actually bisexual. But there's a reason behind it. If I look at the aspect, oh, that nigga acting like a female. When I look at a gay man, I understand that there is an imbalance. The reason that it would get to me at first was what imbalances are triggered within myself, or why is it resonating with me that that's not right? And then I had a thought. I was like, wait, my entire beginning of my career, in my career mode, I was always taught what fundamentals. I was taught about why does it not resonate with me? Why can it not combine to me? Because I was given a contradiction that there was a Father, a Son, and a Holy Spirit. And then I had to come into further aspects that the Holy Spirit that's the feminine aspect. But they removed it and called it the Holy Spirit to denounce it. And then when I look at somebody in that aspect, I'm like, oh, wait. What is that showing me? This person is willing to embrace, based upon the intellectual property of not being seen in a certain light, to be seen in another light. If I wasn't able to study that or look at that, I wouldn't understand. I wouldn't have had the deeper understanding talking about when you look at motherfuckers and they're talking about like Bobby Hemming. I was last watching Bobby Hemming lecture today. He was talking, I forgot, he was talking about Luci. He was talking about the male G-spot being an ass, being the prostate, and the other way to stimulate it. But if my mind was stuck within a space talking about being gay, man, niggas being gay, getting done in the butt, da da da, that is an aspect or a passage right of the goddess. There's actually a way to have that stimulated without the goddess having to stick her finger in your butt. It's in between. Right there in between your sac and your rectum. Right there. That's once it's massaged, that unlocks that gateway to that energy and allows that energy to fully cycle through your body. But if you're stuck on that aspect, that'll be the same. That's the same aspect, the same. You're still stuck within the same polarity or the same thought process that women are only used to procreate. So you can't even look at what procreation truly is on the higher level. Remember, you weren't down here popping out gods. Remember, every mythos, the main mythos to look at it when you're talking about the Titans and Zeus and the Titans versus the Titans and the Titans versus the gods, and Kronos kept eating and not allowing the new energy to be birthed. He kept eating the energy. This goes into the aspect when you start studying the metaphysics, when you start actually understanding the tantra of sex, motherfuckers. I remember when Panty did that whole lecture, the metaphysics, the sexual metaphysics of sex, and he was like, you got to eat the cream pie. Or as Aleister Crowley would say, the Eucharist. It's called by many names. It is the bonding of the two fluids. And it's always strongest when the female was going through their menstrual cycle, their cleansing cycle. Those two things came together, it formed the Eucharist. You can put that shit on your forehead, put that shit on your statues. When it's charged properly, I'm not saying tonight go out and go get a chick that's on her cycle and then go have sex and then put it on your tongue, put it on your forehead, and it's going to do some shit. It's going to do something, but it's based on what you have programmed into it. That sub-program. What are you programming into your mind for you to step forward and do certain aspects? Until you're able to actually tap in. This is the aspect of tapping in for your true enlightenment. Or else you're going to be stuck within a space. Or else you're going to be stuck within a space where someone can use it against you. You're going to be stuck in a whole space where motherfuckers going to use that shit against you. Trying to tap into this new, you're going to come into this new space and not being truly open and truly humble to your heart. You're not going to be able to see because you're still based upon old fundamentals. It's like, I remember back in the day, can't believe I'm saying that now, but I remember back in the day when I remember like the spiritual brother or the Afrocentric brother or that brother, he would like say some shit that would sound real captivating, not denouncing the information that he put out, but the intention behind it was to stimulate something within the queens or the goddess of that archetype at that time, just to get something out of them. It's just the queen was not aware of her true divine ability in reflection to the man, not understanding that king, not understanding that your main purpose when you come down here is to understand the other half of your aspect. That's why since that beginning of time within the Christianity, they said everything about the woman being bad and all this shit. But when you heard Park talk about dear mama and Brendan had a baby, bringing that thought process, that cycling of thought come through to your mind to start upholding it, it forced the contradiction. It forced the contradiction within this de-evolution. So when you take that aspect and you talk about your sexual energy and your charge, remember, you've already created the sub-programs and the program in your mind to how to cycle your energy throughout your currency, through that money. Now that you're understanding how to do that, now that you know how to stimulate your currency and charge your money and make sure it's always falling, those streams are always falling, now you apply that same science to the Tantra. So now when you tap into this higher energy, you have a reason and a purpose to do it based upon the original sub-programs and the programming that you reprogram in your mind. You graduate. You go to the next level. Understanding that it's all energy. I'm going to keep saying that throughout this whole entire lecture tonight. Understanding that it is all energy. It is all energy. And now you understand how to charge your energy and how to create one conduit of stream. This helps you be able to break down why whenever your money's not right, you can't have sex. Man, my money ain't right, man. So my money get right, I ain't trying to do nothing but make this money. I ain't trying to do nothing but make my money, get my money right. That goes into the programming of you're getting your money right, that's the struggle. You're getting your money right, that's to produce more struggle. So when you come into the higher level, when you're talking about the sex aspect and charging yourself and setting those intentions, and when you go into the Tantra and you're doing that worship aspect, because you did that shit unconsciously your entire fucking life. Every time you had sex, you were like, oh God damn. You were saying that shit every fucking time unconsciously, but you didn't understand the depth of the program. So since you don't understand the depth of the programming that based upon a trauma that was a trauma that comes up based on what happened, everything that comes out in the reflection keeps you away from that aspect. That's why you'll sit here. That's what motherfuckers will sit here. And the truth about the spiritual folk, the true enlightened, the true enhanced, we have a higher understanding of energy. In us having a higher understanding of energy, we're actually the most fertile and the most open to the new advances because we understand energy. We understand how to interface with energy. But if your mind is still fundamentally stuck within the religious base, you won't understand how to tap into that energy. You won't go look at the temple walls in India and see how they had all of the different positions, Kama Sutra. You won't be able to embrace it and use that energy to the fullest extent. You'll only use it for a basic benefit. You'll be stuck within the time loop creating a basic benefit. And since you're using it for a basic benefit at a basic level, all you're going to do is continue creating at a basic level. So when it comes into procreation, if I tell you about, if I break down, I'm breaking it down, you can become spiritually pregnant. And spiritual pregnancy can happen in the man, in the god, or the goddess. Because you have to remember, Matt, when you are becoming to that androgynous state, balancing your masculine and your feminine, you can have a spirit baby. A spiritual aspect, the manifestation of energy that formulates itself and creates itself into their spiritual womb. That's procreation. That's the aspect when you start studying, when you want to understand women. I hate it because I saw it in a fucking post today that I was like, niggas is stupid. But niggas just being niggas, creating polarities unconsciously. But it was talking about the mitochondrial DNA, and how the woman did not need the man at the beginning of the time. So they didn't need women at the beginning of the time. So that still don't make no sense. That's asking. I'm not going to tell my son that at a point in time the woman didn't need the man. Your ass is getting stuck in fucking humanity. You got to understand we were gods. We still are gods. We were creators. So it was androgynous. That's why every time you look at the temple walls, you see Shiva. You'll see two gods put together. You'll see the archetype. You see the masculine and the feminine aspects within one space. Down here, everything is separate. Until you learn that aspect, it cannot become it. So understanding in the procreation, in procreating at that level in that space, when you're in that mindset, what are you creating when you now are in that tantric position? What are you creating within your space? What are you birthing? Is the energy that you're tapping into on the level with you in order to procreate what it is that you need to create? Or are you going to be stuck in a time loop of niggas making babies? It will always be a cycle. Once you understand the higher, everything matriculates down to the lower into understanding. So when you're looking at this aspect, when I break this aspect, when you look at the aspect of procreation is not simply in the physical form. It's created within your mental. Everything starts up in your mind. At a point in time when you put together your life work and you came down, you were like, I think at that point in time, I'm going to create a seed. And that seed I'm going to nurture. It's going to come into existence to be nurtured to show me something. Once you understand this benefit once you understand this benefit going forward into your mind in that process, now you actually understand the true term of being the creator. Now you can have a deeper understanding of why they gave you that story. The woman did not need that aspect because they were more whole. They're coming from an aspect of being more whole. The history is giving you something from more whole, and that's why the knowledge becomes fragmented, because then now you must go into the other aspect of yourself to truly understand it. But if I give you constant belligerent thought processes of battling back and forth based upon keeping something going, being stuck within a polarity, then of course, every time that conversation comes up and it triggers something within you to actually study, read, and go forward, to use that information, to allow it to impute into your reprogram your subconscious to create new sub-programs, and it challenges you on that, then that's why these niggas get upset. I watched an entire argument conspire in one of the groups that I'm in on my Facebook. And this dude went in, and you can just tell his energy was from an aspect of, I'm not going to teach my sons this, and this, based upon that. You can just tell, being the observer sitting back, that at that point in time, there's still something within him that is traumatically broken, that is still feeding from that original thought form, that original program. There's something within him that he has not succeeded to break that original program. Inside you, getting stuck in that time loop, whether it be how to make money, whether it be anything at that level, you can't break that. You cannot break down those sub programs because they're connected to traumas that keep you still thriving within your humanity. So you can't have the sex talk to a higher level, to a higher extent. You can't listen to somebody talk about, orgies are nasty. Ooh, this is wrong. This is that. This is that. Because you're choosing a side, so you're not stuck within a polarity. Now that you've chosen a side, here's the crazy thing about interface with energy. I've told about this before. When I interface with energy now, the feminine aspects of energy, I do it 2 and 3 at a time. When I interface with the feminine aspects of energy, the feminine goddesses and those archetypes of deities, I deal with them 2 to 3 at a time. I'm able now to openly deal with them 2 and 3 at a time. I can have, now when this matriculates down, now I can get 2 or 3 visions or 2 or 3 channels or downloads. I can get multiple downloads because I'm open. But if you're not open to, on the human level, into understanding the aspects of the history of an orgy, the history of interfacing with this energy on these larger scales, looking at the aspect of, the word is skipping my mind as I'm speaking. Fuck. Sacred geometry. Understanding the interweaving of sacred geometry and understanding that it's multiple energies coming to interface to create that space. If your mind's not open to what an orgy is in the original, how orgy originated, the historical imprint of it, every time you get to that piece of the information where it talks about orgies or it gives you the definition of orgies, you can't interface with it. It doesn't even matter if you read the entire definition and have the book. All the information comes in because you're so older, that sub-program of your older self based on the patriarchal fundamentals, based on the masculine intellectual aspect, does not allow you to take that information in. So you still stay doing human shit. But your soul, now that your soul is active, because you brought the information down, you brought the light down. Now your mind, now your soul is going to start acting out based upon your identity, making you do things. What possessed you to do that? 1 second. So now you'll get stuck in this aspect. You get stuck in the aspect of you won't read onto the sacred whore or Babylon or whatever it is, because now in your mind it will not compute because you're thinking Babylons are going to burn. But you're thinking Babylon's going to burn, as into the aspect of thinking that you're still giving power to somebody else and saying that something is going to burn or going to fall or falter, not understanding that it is a cycle that must happen. So then you go back and forth battling. Now you got people over here doing this, you got people over here doing that. You're not coming together. You're not coming together based on the energy, based on the tether of the energy. Because you don't understand the competence. You don't have the competency or the comprehension to do it. So I listen to motherfuckers talk about polygamy, all of the different aspects, which are tethers of energy. Once you understand them, there is tethering of energy. And that's the aspect that you need to learn. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to do it, but you must understand the reasoning behind it in order to tap into the aspect of the energy. All of this is energy. I was in South Carolina Sunday till Wednesday. And I went into one of the little gift shops, and they had the Make America Great Again hats, and it had some other Trump hat for 2020. And I went and copped both of them. I went down there, they had the Confederate flag, went and copped it. I'm walking into these places, and I was like, yo, I want to get that Confederate flag over there, and let me get two of them Trump hats. Motherfucker looked at me like I lost my motherfucking mind. Niggas was standing behind me, looking at me like I lost my motherfucking mind. But in common sense, I mean, for me, I was like, nigga, do you see what I'm dressed in? Nigga, do you see? I mean, if you understood the significance of this, you would not be looking at me in that way. If you understood the significance of tapping into the energy and using it to your benefit without the emotional tether that's tied to it, that's why young motherfuckers scared of witches now. But take that aspect into your mind. Take that aspect. So I have my currency in place. I understand how to stimulate my currency and reach into different aspects. I understand that this is how I stimulate my currency. This is how I put that in. This is how I make that account grow. This is how I make my balances. This is how I bring everything into existence. Now I've built this aspect of my currency. I understand more about energy. I'm open to interfacing with the multiple energies to gain to my multiple currency. Now I need to tether. These two things are linked. Now I need to link them to something. At this point in time, this is when I started getting channels and those visions and those channels and those downloads. Having them wild ass fucking dreams. Having them wild ass fucking orgy dreams. And like at first I was having orgy dreams and I would just be standing there like at first in one of my dreams. They can't, yeah. But that's this aspect. That's the aspect of how we're doing this. For the ones that are able to get that light and that ability, they go to the next level. They graduate. Other ones, they come back here with baby brain. I keep telling motherfuckers, I ain't coming back here with baby brain for nobody. Period. I will end whole fucking friendships, bonds, tethers, based upon I ain't coming back here with baby brain. But you take that aspect, now you need something to tether it to. So now you got the energy in place, so you got the currency rolling. Now you understand how to interface with the energy. Now you need to go higher. Now the aspect of going higher when it's talking about this energy is how you interface with the energy. If you interface the energy as a servant, they'll treat you as a servant. I've read like so many fucking initiate books, and I read certain books about initiations, and they're always funny to me because they always say you have to act like this or be like this, or remember you can't bow to this or this, and this. And I can tell by who it's written by or what it's written by the context of their understanding to the intellectual aspect. So I know exactly my subprograms in my subconscious. I know that when I read something, I read it as myself, talking to myself, dealing with myself, bonding with myself. So I take that aspect. So then you have to create an entity to harbor all of this energy. In the physical form, to harbor this energy, you're now going from understanding the disciplines of your currency, that's the player. Understanding how to interface and create those plays and those playbooks, that's the coach. Now you're going to the aspect of the owner. The owner in the physical form can be the LLC or the manager. If you're going into other aspects outside of yourself, you will always be managing something for somebody else. You'll always be doing things for somebody else. You'll always be acting as a tool for somebody else because your confidence in yourself has not allowed you to get past the distractions, the propagandas. You haven't graduated. You have not become open enough and humble enough to the aspect. So you get stuck. So then you want to argue back and forth to say shit that don't make no fucking sense. And niggas like, us chaos beings, we laugh at you. Similar to how them gods laugh at you. I'm here to tell you in your face that the way that most motherfuckers are trying to interact with these spirits and interact with this energy, they laugh at you. They give you errand boy. They give you errand boy fucking. Yeah, they give you errand boy or yo. This is exactly how I put it. I remember when I like moved back when I was in New York. And I remember my uncle always give me 100, go to the store and go pick up this, or wherever I was at. Go to the store and go pick up this. My uncle would give me the money. I always get the change back. I always put the change in my pocket. I hand my uncle the stuff. He never asked me for the change. My uncle never asked me for the change. Anytime I went to the store for him, uncle, older cousin, whatever, every time I went to the store for him, they never asked me for the change. But then I noticed when they asked somebody else, the person would always hand them the change with whatever it was. And then they would give them $2 or give them $2 out of the 50 or whatever it was broke down to. They gave them what they felt they deserved. Unconsciously and inherently, I knew that, nigga, I went to the store. I got $100. My uncle said, go get something that costs $2. That means I had $98 in my pocket. I put it in my pocket, going my own business. I stand there the entire time. I remember until one day my uncle was like, go to the store for me. I was like, all right. Somehow, walked up to the store. I knew exactly what my uncle needed. Went to the store. I have this money in my pocket. Pull out the money, get the change, put it in my pocket. Got back to wherever we was at. Got back to where we were at, where we were chilling at. And went on about my business as I stir around my herbs. That's what got us tripping. The spirit is in here. Because I got them herbs lit up in this motherfucker. That's what that is. Got them herbs in here cooking. We don't get in the spirit cooking too. That just came. But you take this aspect, He would always give me the change or whatever and say, hey, go take this to this, do this, this, and this. I do what he said do. My uncle taught me at a young age, you have to make your own payments and set your own terms. At this level, we get so stuck up in these propagandas and all these distractions and whatever, not understanding that the reason that they keep repeating, everything's going to keep repeating itself because you ain't learning from the shit. Everything is going to keep repeating itself because you ain't learned from the shit. You have not put yourself into the ability to learn from the shit, to move the shit, to do what you need to do with it as it happens. So as this keeps happening to yourself, you're stuck now in this paradox or this paradigm that no longer suits you, but you're still trying to live within it. So when we have this aspect, and I'm talking about the motherfucker that's been standing on the corner speaking the same rhetoric for the last 30 years, and they're still mad at the church person. The reason that they're still mad at the church person is because they do not understand that they have become the church person. There it is. I told myself the other day, like, the next time a Jehovah's Witness comes to my door, I'm just going to walk to the door with my cauldron in my hand like this. I have a bigger one. I'm going to walk to the door with my cauldron, and I'm going to be stirring around my herbs and my incense while they're standing there trying to talk to me. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Every time they come to the door. I actually haven't had any come to my door in such a long fucking time. But yeah, besides that point. But yeah, you put yourself into this reality or this setting or this tone or this mood to stay within that space, but stuck within that time loop. So if I'm stuck within this time loop of trying to prove something to somebody else based on my knowledge and my interpretation, what information I've gathered, and I spend my time doing that, all I'm doing is creating the polarity or that pendulum swing is swinging still in that same space. It never rises up. So I never can cut the ties and go to the next level. That this mindset based upon that original program into your fucking mind, how you think, what you want to think, you're not truly thinking. You're not really thinking. You're not really putting anything into any aspect because all you're doing is giving yourself feel-good motives and feel-good notions. All you're giving yourself is a feel-good notion. It sounds good and it sounds great to say, I'm a god, I'm a goddess. Yeah. If you're stuck in the routine, when you're stuck in that routine, you do not understand, you cannot see the purpose. You don't see the discipline. You don't see what you need to fucking see because you're only looking for what's based upon the routine. And if you already programmed into your mind the routine that white people are evil and white people are this and all of this shit, and that's your program, that's what you've accepted as your programming, and now your sub-programs must go to the original seed. Remember, this is the aspect about that original seed. You have the light. You are the original seed. So if I, within one of your sub-programs, put in this thought process into that program or that virus, we'll call it a virus, put that virus into that sub-program, everything that you created to that sub-program is now programmed with that virus to sustain itself. This is why Black lives has to matter to some, because they need that program archetype in their life in order for their shit to exist. What they're getting, what they've got in that level to still exist, so they have a reason to stay there. And they need everything that comes up after that to submit to that ideal, those attributes of that ideal, in order for it to usher on and keep going. But the true mind of the occultist is to look for the contradiction and understand that within the contradiction is the answer. Their truth is within the contradiction. While you're stuck on the aspects of something that happened eons ago that does not fucking exist at this point in time, it's not going to work at this point in time. Why in the fuck? Here's something to think about. Why in the hell? Why? If you understand that something is inherently flawed, this is how you can tell some people have been at certain levels. If you understand that this level is inherently flawed, in that aspect, you understand this level is inherently flawed. Humanity is an inherent flaw. It's flawed. That's why it has to keep creating itself. That's why it has to keep going through the cycles. It got to keep going through seasons. If you understand this, if you come to a certain aspect in your life when you're time to evolve and go to another level, why would you think to stay where the fuck you was at? Because you've been taught to shame anything that's actually initiating evolution or change. You've been taught to inherently shame anything that's causing true chaos, because you were giving a certain set of morals and standards based upon your identity that you're still trying to fit into. So if it doesn't fit this identity of yourself, you get stuck within that time loop. You get stuck within that space. You get stuck within the acts and the actions within that space. So you're steady looking in that space for something to feed your soul, and you're not even feeding your soul. The very little nourishment that your soul is getting comes out in, I got my crystals, I got my ankhs, I got my crystal, and I got my ankhs. And then you want to graduate, then you want to go into the darkness. I got my pentagrams, and I got my sigils of Lilith and all of my sigils. So now you want to be on one side or the other. You're supposed to be transcending in the transparency of understanding both to go to the next level. The deeper aspects. You're still trying to feed your identity. Feeding your identity is not going to do anything, because your identity can never be fed. It will never be full. It will always be hungry. Your humanity is always hungry. Your ego is always hungry. Your ego is always going to feed your humanity exactly what it needs to sustain itself right there. So if I stay within the light aspect of my life, if I stay within the light and only do light work, when it comes time to be challenged by anything that's of darkness, I don't know how to share or speak on the darkness, because I haven't dealt with it within myself. You have to deal with every aspect of you in order to become the best you. You have to deal with every aspect of you, or you get stuck within the cipher and the time loop of being that old motherfucker that will tell you about the Afrocentric movement. I listened to bits and pieces of the Farrakhan speech, and it's the same speech revamped. I tell that to anybody that tells me about the Farrakhan speech. Go look at it. It's the same speech revamped, because that's his purpose. I heard somebody say, and they repeated the same shit. They were like, Farrakhan has the basis of media. He should be the one to lead this charge. And I looked and I was like, if that was the case in point, he would have been done it already. This is how we got to start looking at this shit. If somebody is in the media and they have a certain standpoint, they speak on certain things, and they keeping. You have to listen to what they're saying and how they're fucking saying it. I love the message. I can grab the message. Every once in a while, Farrakhan will say something different. Someone has a different interpretation. I follow Ben X. He has a lot of good key points, but I'm listening to the message. I'm not looking at the person. Because if I'm stuck looking at another person to save me, how the fuck can I call myself a god? If I'm looking at another person to save me, to save me in that aspect, how can I call myself a god? If I'm scared of the chaos that ensues from me acting as a god, how can I graduate to becoming a titan? How can I graduate to my next level of myself and I'm stuck thinking about what other people are thinking about me, how other people are moving and how other people are doing the things that they're doing? If that was the case, I would not be, if that was my case in point of what I was doing, I would not come every Friday and give a lecture and speak on these topics. I would not have the podcast. I would not be taking the podcast further and doing an after hour, doing the God Hour show. I would not be doing the aspects that are needed for me within me cultivating my purpose and initiating the genius and the intelligence of my passion. I wouldn't be using my energy to the highest level. And since I would not be using my energy to the highest level, I could get stuck in the polarity of the propagandas, of something happened to me 2 days ago. No, 2 weeks ago, I remember like I had a deposit hit my account for like, I want to say like $670 from a couple of services, and I acquired some new clients. That shit hit my account, and then something told me to look at my account, and then somewhere in California, somebody bought something. They bought $660 worth of shit from fucking Target in California somewhere. From the clear coherent mind, I was like, all right, the first thing I need to do now, the old self of myself would be upset, would be mad, and be cursing and be like, these niggas over here stealing my shit, niggas always in da da da. How. I would always have questions and never be able to answer them because I was not in a clear coherent space. So I called up Bank of America. Was on the phone for like an hour. No, I was on the phone for like 45 minutes waiting. On the phone 45 minutes waiting for him. Get on the phone. Finally got to the fraudulent department. Talked to them, gave them my information, told them where I live at. Nobody has access to this and this and this. Go through the whole process. And then I sat there. That was on a Tuesday. It was on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday afternoon. Went through the process. Did what I needed to do. Answered the question. They said they're going to send me some paperwork or whatever. I was like, all right, bet. My focus was no longer on that. That was in play. I was like, as that plays out, how it needs to play out, I got all the information that I needed, asked every question that I needed to ask, stated every state that I needed to do coherently. They were like, the last thing, I think her name was Angela, so I knew it was a little white girl. The last thing she said, you were actually very calm for somebody that went through this. I was like, what is the point of me getting upset at this situation when it won't give me any resolve? What is the point of me getting upset at a situation when it's not going to bring me to resolve? It's not going to bring me any faster resolve being upset. I don't have to go to that point. So I waited. Within that week, I made that money back plus some. Within that week, I made that bread back plus some. Because my mind was not focused on the thought form of somebody taking from me. My mind was not in the thought process of somebody acquiring my funds illegally. It wasn't in my mind. I remember I went for a walk that night. For a walk that night to the little corner store across the street from my complex. And I was like, I'm looking at myself having a whole alpha moment like, nigga, I'm not even mad. I'm not upset. I'm not anything. Then I had that whole conversation with myself. Why are you not mad? I said, what's the point of me being upset? I mean, the worst case scenario is that I don't get that money back. But in reality, I mean, what am I to be upset about? 3 days go by. By Friday, I ended up making that money back plus some. By Saturday, I did set up more consultations and did readings, set up for more some. And then I had that thought. In my mind, I was like, yo, I noticed that when I was upset and angry, I locked myself into a polarity based upon keeping that anger alive. Because I initiated that original thought of being angry and upset at something or whatever it was that I was going through. That once I locked myself into that mindset, I created that thought form, and that thought form needed to thrive. So I noticed that in order for that thought form to thrive at those points in time when I would get angry over something, let's go back 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I had a similar instance happen with Bank of America. Somebody got into my account, got my information, they did some work on my account. The crazier part of that account, I wasn't really using that account. It was simply for deposits. And then I'm looking at that account and I'm like, what is this showing me? I need to just step out of that account. Don't use that account anymore. I was so upset and so angry and so irate. I'm cursing on the phone every other day. They ask me for more information. I'm giving them more information. They're saying, well, this looks weird. I said, I don't know what the fuck that shit is. Get more and more upset. What ended up happening was that account ended up closing because they said it was based upon fraudulent activity that they cannot prove, and they shut down my account. I was so fucking angry, so fucking pissed. That thought form needed to survive. My ego needed to survive within that angry state because it was feeding. And this is one of those first aspects when I was actually coming into the awareness phase of myself. So I needed that energy. I needed that drama. I needed that to ensue inherently because it fit every fundamental about what I've already based upon the knowledge in that space. So I ended up losing all of that money. I ended up losing that account, and I was sitting there angry. And that thought form ensued and went through an entire paradox. That was, I didn't even realize that was the beginning of my infrastructure falling. The infrastructure that I came to know and trust was falling. My security systems that I put in place based upon my identity were falling. My ego continued to search for polarities to be stuck into within that space to try to keep my infrastructure intact. Until I came to a point where I had to let go. You have to come to a point where you have to let go. You have to let go. Because if you're not letting go of these certain aspects within your life of your old self, how the hell, if I'm not looking at these older aspects of myself and I'm not letting go of them, how can I study them? If I take the book, if I take my trauma and put it in my face like this, and I'm seeing, what you're doing is you're now seeing through your trauma. You're now speaking through your trauma. You're now still feeling through your trauma. You're now still feeling through that trial. This is what you're going through. Until you're able to remove that veil that is that trauma and put it in front of you to actually look at it for what it was, you don't understand how to get past that. That's the time loop you'll get stuck in. That thought form that you have created, that was created for you at that point in time in that space, that thought form that came up based on that trauma that has now been symbolized, that you have now created a new symbol for it to exist within your space. Now you're living through the trauma. You're bonding based on the trauma. When you base your whole entire existence, because you're not living, you're only existing, you become a zombie based on the trauma. The trauma is that conduit, or it becomes that parasite that forms and needs everything to connect around it. So how do you think all of this came into existence based upon an original trauma? The original traumas that were laid upon your head. All right, give them this to work with. Give them this offering. Remember, in the de-evolutionized sense, when they give you this over, in this, that's where we get into the the hypersexualization. When they give you hypersexualization based upon the feminine aspect, that feminine energy, it makes you not want to look at the great whore, the sacred whore, in all of her many archetypes. You start to denounce certain aspects that are truly a part of you because you don't know how to tap into them. You're tapping into them based upon the initiation of the trauma. The trauma is always the initiation. It's the same aspect, but it's given to you on a devolved sense. So if I initiate a trauma within you on a devolved sense, then every time, that's the new cause. If I take you away from the original cause of what it originally is, and I now translate it through a new event that creates a new effect, and now I activate based upon that trauma, studying your shit, using your shit against you, every time you go forward and you create something, guess what? It's based upon the original trauma that I initiated. Based on me being naturally the destruction. Based on me being natural destruction. I don't understand how can you truly be upset with tamahoos and side effects? Those are my names for white people. Tamahoos and side effects, because that's what the fuck they are. They're a side effect of your genius and matriculated down to the lower level, into this lower realm that was created to encompass it. The prison planet. How can you be upset at something for doing exactly what it's supposed to do? It's supposed to destroy the natural human order because you're not human. It doesn't phase you. It's not supposed to be something that you're supposed to be like, nigga, we supposed to be building pyramids again. I don't want to build a pyramid here. I didn't build 16 archetypes of my astral plane, tapping into other realms. I've already created the pyramid. I've already created monuments. I've already created shit based upon me to empower and invoke my energy into. So when it matriculates down here and then I see it in the physical form, now I can create that physical conduit to connect to it. That's working with the energy. That's the sorcery. That's the alchemy. I just want to do this with the little spin of the spoon. But that's the creation aspect. But when you're shut down based upon the trauma aspect, then guess what you do every time? You only act based off of the trauma and the propaganda of the trauma. You get stuck within the polarity of that aspect. So you're always going to see motherfuckers at this level arguing about Black Lives Matter. I'm pro-black and anti-white. Anything that's against my people, I'm against. Not understanding that everything that's against your people is the shit that you need to understand. That's the aspect that you need to understand in order to understand to uplift your people if you want to uplift your people. But if you look at it through the lens of your ego, you're always going to hear a motherfucker say, it was written by a white person. I was watching something earlier today. It was written by a white person, so I really can't take it into validity. Why not? It's your information. 90% of the books that are written by white scholars and intellectuals, the main thing that they're missing out of it is the ear. The gateway to your subconscious, what you hear. They remove the ear. That was the same aspect when you studied when, I forgot his name, the painter that cut his ear off. That nigga. For love. That was the interpretation of cutting off his ear for love and giving it to his bride. Giving it to Shorty with the, giving him his ear. That's letting you know that you have to sacrifice something in order to hear this shit, to get the abundance of the level of energy that you need to tap into. If you don't do this, then all you're doing is repeating the same rhetoric and stuck within the same polarities, looking for polarities. If you look at a video, movie, whatever it is, and you don't understand what programming is, mind control is, it becomes detrimental to your subconscious because you don't know what the fuck it is. You don't understand the programming. So when you look at the aspects of people breaking down propagandas and all of those aspects, propagandas and all of those issues and the stuff that's happening in the world, study all and follow none. Study it. They keep showing you this. It's a tactic that I use because I'll sit there. It's like watching a scary movie, knowing that you're going to go to bed looking under your fucking bed. I remember when Gremlins came out. Gremlins came out in like 84. I was born in 84, so it didn't exist for me. But I remember when I first saw the movie Gremlins. And I remember my brother was like the sloppy one. So like he would take his pants off or his jeans off or his shirt off. He would push them under his bed. On his side, he had a nightlight in the room. Me and my brother shared a room. Had a nightlight on his side. He was scared of the fucking dark. I remember I would always turn over and face this side of my wall because I didn't want to see the light. Even at that age, I didn't like the light. So I was looking at the light and I'd be like, I remember one time I looked under his bed. We just finished watching Gremlins. I looked under his bed and I swore that his pants under his bed balled up. It looked like one of the gremlin eggs after that shit got wet. Fucked my head up for about a week and a half. Fucked my whole head up for about a week and a half. I remember until I challenged myself to like, my mom was like, clean your room. And I remember my brother was sick. And I remember I went to his bed. I took the clothes from under there, turned off the little nightlight, turned the nightlight back on. I was inherently facing my fear. Inherently facing my fear, even at that younger stage in my life. I had to face that fear. You got to face this darkness. You got to face that darkness. You got to face those shadows. This is how you get stuck in the continuum of your life, always ending the way that it ends. So, because the moment that you are challenged on these higher planes, and this is aspects of fucking with that God energy, fucking with that higher level energy. When you come to these levels and they challenge you, you're not able to meet it. When you come to this level, remember, when you are put, it doesn't matter what discipline you do. It doesn't matter what discipline you take in. It doesn't matter how much you meditate, how much you do, you have daily affirmations and whatever you speak or whatever the fuck you say. That the shit does not fucking matter when you are presented with the challenge to use what you have learned, what you have disciplined yourself in. So when a high stress situation comes up, such as a Black Lives Matter, a pedophilia ring, all of these aspects keep coming up into your life every day. Those are aspects that are challenging you. Man, it's an agenda, man. It's an agenda against the black man. It's an agenda against the black man and the black woman. So we do not procreate and we do not create soldiers. If I have an understanding that around my fucking pineal gland, the black dot, my crown, and I understand the 72 Goetias or the 72 conspirators of set within my mind, and 99 attributes of Allah within me, and I understand that those are energy, nigga, why do I need to create any further more soldiers when I have soldiers on my side? Why do I need to do anything based upon humanity to make humanity thrive? It becomes a contradiction in what you're doing. And that contradiction is what people are not trying to go through. That contradiction aspect where it's contradicting your natural beliefs based upon your humanity and your morality, that's what you're not trying to face. Instead, you try to escape. Your trauma tries to escape within circumventing to it to get a little bit of the energy. So you'll denounce a spiritual practice, which came from a spiritual practice, because it's been brought down here as a de-evolutionary, as a de-evolutionized aspect on the lower plane. And since you're thinking that you are in the human aspect, those are the aspects that are going to plague your mind. That's the generational curse. Dealing with these things is how you step forward. I had 2 consultations the other day. I gave them the disclaimer. One second. I don't know why I drink and always have to pee. I gave them the disclaimer. Gave them my disclaimer. This will be the best or the worst conversation of your life based upon your intentions to grow and evolve. Truly grow and evolve. Somebody came to me and they were asking like, "Yo, I want to tap into Oshun. I want to tap into Ogun or Obatala, one of the two. I want to tap in and start like having him work for me. I was like, I can now consult you and give you to a nice IFA that'll help you do to that process. They're like, nah, like I wanna build my altar to Obatala and do this aspect of work through him. I was like, the processes of what I teach and what I do consultations and I counsel on and I do teaching on is interfacing and becoming energy. I do not teach individuals how to contact a spirit or contact an energy. I can, but that's not my purpose. I can give you the number and the information to an Ifa or to a priest in that aspect, but we do it. I teach based upon interfacing with energy. I could have been that. I could have lowballed it, and if I was in that space, I could have easily been like, "Yeah, I teach you how to get in the tapping the Ogun." But that would be under the mindset on a lower level of myself and a lower aspect. That's not me. Ooh, look at my light. Look at it doing the light thing. Y'all see the Y'all see it? I know y'all see that shit. Yeah. But anyways, that shit won't stop going now. All right, I'm gonna put it in my head. Let do what they do. But I'm a unicorn, and I could have easily did that. This is the aspect of when people will put things on you. People will put aspects on you based upon their insecurities and their perceptions of their thought processes. They'll put things on you based upon the things that they're living through in a limited sense, and then they won't. Ooh, that shit feel good. And they'll do that in a limited sense to lock you into a certain space so they can always gravitate and grab from you. That is the level of what's happening here, why you get stuck in a time loop. That's the aspect of being stuck within a job or being stuck within your family values or these traditions or moralism or traditionalism that you don't even know that you inherently attacked into based upon the generational curse, based upon something not being dealt with in you not dealing with something only now creates the new space of it not to be dealt with. Take the aspect of, I remember when I was little, and the main thing that I heard you hear in Black families is because I'm grown. You understand when you get grown, it was like that blanket over, you can get grown. Think about everybody that said, you can get this when you're grown, you can get this when you're grown, you do this has happened when you're grown, this happens, you can do this, this, and this. Think about what that thought form now created. When I turned 16, I wasn't 16 till I got my first cell phone. My nice little A6100 Samsung from Sprint. Basic silver, had Samsung in the middle, had a green screen. That was my first phone. Now, before that, I had pages and in two ways, but that was for a whole nother purpose. That's for a whole nother surface, for a whole nother lecture. I might put that in the podcast. But then now, I was like going through that ability of being grown. Okay, cool. I got my cell phone. I got my cell phone because I got a job. So my initiation was my job, getting my first job based upon the identity where I was at. You get your job, then you can get your phone, you can get food. I remember coming to the house every day after I got off work, and it was cool as fuck because I would spend. This is when I got the legal job to counterbalance my illegal activities during the summertime, so I can have a reason to have the money, hiding my shit in plain sight, buy myself hot pockets and all types of shit. Just buy myself hot pockets, snacks. My little brother wanted something. My little sisters wanted something. I say, yo, you want something from the store before I come to the house? Blah, 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 boom, boom, boom. Getting whatever they wanted. It was the sense of my initiation, my rite of passage. I had the job, so now I can get this phone. What's happening now in the de-evolutionized sense is that process is no longer needed because that initiation has already happened. At this level now, this is showing you further that the initiation is inherently through DNA. It's through your genetics. Because that thought form of when you become grown, you can get a phone, when you got your job, do whatever. Now it's become, you got 12-year-olds right now and all of this shit because the initiation rites are no longer needed. It's now a natural process. It's naturally already written list. We get stuck within that platform or that identity of something that no longer exists. Man, I got my energy all popping over. We're stuck within a platform that no longer exists. So this is why you got motherfuckers regurgitating the same exact shit that they heard Bobby Hemmett say, that they heard Brother Panic say, and they're not taking it and putting the interpretation because they have not yet applied it to their own science of themselves. They're not allowing it to challenge them. It sounds good. I to challenge it externally because they're not challenging it internally. They won't challenge themselves internally, their inner workings. They won't take the information and apply it to internal workings, to true gnosis. They won't go to the Quiloth. I always say the Quiloth. I can never pronounce the fucking tree of knowledge. They won't take themselves beyond that space because it's going to change the parameters of the space here. That's why you hear motherfuckers say, yo, you got to. One of the biggest aspects that I came into when I was studying EFA, when I was studying initiation rites, before I actually did, that was like actually my second Akashic meditation ritual that I did for myself. Before I got into that aspect, I was like, none of it resonated with me. None of it resonated with me. Any of the initiations, when I would read the initiations, they gave me this feeling that I've already done it. Or it gave me this sense, it gave me a sense of power. And this is what happens for a lot of people. It gives them a sense of power that they once did not have. The initiation, just reading the initiation rites or going through the rite of passage, it gives them a power that they realized that they did not have. And since they do not have that balance in themselves, they're still stuck within the light aspect. They're feeling that if someone else brings it to the surface for me, all I have to do is tap into the feel good feeling. That's the same thing similar when you start thinking about when you think about religion and the motherfucker is jumping around in the church. Oh Lord, thank you, Jesus, and fall out to the ground. And then when you're little and you're subjected to this environment, now you're looking like, I can't wait to get, maybe because I'm not grown. You see how it connects? Maybe because I'm not grown, I don't feel that feeling. How can I tap into that feeling? This is where escape comes from. Remember, this realm is nothing but, this realm is to be fed or to feed. Inherently flawed that you must feed to survive here. You must feed or you must be fed. You're either being fed upon or you're feeding something. One or the side. Addiction and exploitation is what this level is. The addiction to connect to something that gives you fulfillment based upon needing and wanting, and then the exploitation is based upon that, upon feeding from the thought forms and keeping the thought forms in play so that you live within that space. So you can now have that excuse to do this or that excuse to do that. Religion, fundamentals of religion instilled based upon whether you go from what is religion based on the watered down that's devoid of spirituality, or you come into the archetypes of spirituality based upon the fundamentals of religion was later based upon on. You're still doing the same exact thing. That's why this needs to exist. That's why you need the motherfuckers over here to be Bible thumpers, so motherfuckers over here can be Obatala thumpers. I shake them both up. To the motherfuckers that are the Bible thumpers, nigga, I say, I am Jesus. Nigga, I am the devil. I am Jesus. I am Beelzebub. I am these deities that they tell you not to go through. I am that. Okay, now what's next? It challenges them. They can't go any forward, but quote up a bunch of scriptures. The same ones that come to me that are speaking on the aspects of Obatala will be angry with you and this spirit will be angry with you. Nigga, Oshun is not going to bless you. I don't know about you, nigga, but I was just laid up with Oshun, Kali, and Lilith last night. So what's next? Because I interface with the energy differently. You're on a different level. You're in a different plane. You don't need the initiation. You don't need that initiation on the lower level. It's more about you tapping into that energy. That's where you're seeing this aspect in real time. As humanity devolves into this state, It's showing you the as above, as below aspect. So when you see kids running around with cell phones on Instagram, Facebook, I'm not going to doubt that there's a 17-year-old or 18-year-old girl right now with a motherfucking OnlyFans page. Not going to doubt it at all. But what you're seeing is the initiation is no longer needed. It's about interfacing with it based upon your confidence within yourself. That's what you have the aspects when you think, when you study the aspects of the sacred whore, when you study the aspects of Dionysus, when you actually get into the Gnostic text, all these niggas had was orgies and had sex parties. Because they had a deeper understanding of the aspect of the energy. They understood that humanity was inherently flawed. So if humanity is inherently flawed, how can I use it to my advantage? If something is inherently flawed, how can I use it to my advantage? How can I use it how can I make it my vantage point in order for me to go forward? How can I build my confidence within my practices? These aspects of when you're going forward and you're taking yourself into these thought processes, you start interfacing with the energy. Even if you start challenging yourself in not to praising the goddess of the witches, you become the goddess of the witches. You become those archetypes. You embody those archetypes. You become those archetypes. This is the aspect when you get into creating your own sigil. And I teach how to create your own sigil. And I create sigils for people. This is when you get into the aspects of creating sigils and understanding the sigils and interfacing with the energy, creating new symbols, using the symbols that are around you. That way you can walk into a gift shop and you can buy a Confederate flag, some Trump hats, because you understand the interfacing of the energy. Because you're outside of the paramount of emotion. This is about coming outside of the paramount of emotion. But the only way that you can come out of something is by first going into it. You must understand it. This goes to the aspect when you think about the Jesus and they say, Satan, get behind me. The reason he can say Satan, get behind me is because he has mastered the darkness. He went through the darker aspects of himself. That archetype, that's what that archetype teaches you. He went through those darker aspects of himself. He went through those trials to master the light, to master the darkness, to become the light. You in a resurrection phase. Most motherfuckers are in a resurrection phase. They dying like they've never died before. They dying like they're dying because they've never died before. When you're stuck within fundamentals of something lower than yourself, you start seeing everything based upon those routines. You put things in certain spaces because you have not yet understood the interfacing or dealt with the traumas that are within you to interface with that energy in that same light. This creates that ego complex that your identity attaches to thinking that something else you can never perform at that level because you don't have the confidence to be at that level. I met a shapeshifter 3 years ago. I met my first shapeshifter empath. She was fucking crazy. It was bananas. Yeah, I remember I was listening. I remember 2 years after that, I was still trying to look for the explanation for it. And I remember I was watching a panic lecture, and he shared and disclosed and said he met a shapeshifter, like she could morph her morph her pussy into anything that he thought, hey, become Foxy Brown, become this, and she can pull that energy down. And in working with that energy, this is how you interface with the energy in the physical form. But you have to become comfortable. You have to become uncomfortable in humanity to become comfortable and humble in being a god, being a goddess, being this higher archetype of energy. to actually understand when somebody's saying something and speaking on something. When it hits you and you're like, ugh, I can't believe they said that shit. There's a reason that they needed to say it. This goes into the aspect of when you're teaching, you have to be willing to, the first thing aspect in teaching and coming into this space that I give anybody, there's no going back. I said it in an earlier lesson when I was always talking about fuck them kids. There's no going back. Fuck them kids. You're the only one that matters. You're the only one that matters. Study all, follow none. Fuck them kids. There's no going back. These are 4 archetypes of light that I use to go through the darkness. Fuck them kids. Ain't no going back. Study all, follow none. And I just forgot the 4th one that fucking fast. But anyway, y'all got the aspect of that. Because it allows me to challenge my thought. If I keep saying fuck them kids to myself and I build that mantra to myself, fuck them kids, my higher aspect of learning and understanding is always going to be on, if I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm already constantly fucking the next generation anyway. If I'm keeping them in the same space, in the same propaganda, in the same aspects of shit, I'm locking them in a time loop anyway. So even if they do graduate and go beyond me, which is that's the when you parent this energy in, what you bring in, you are putting in to make something go forward above it. When we were taught, I remember the aspect of the generational curse based on generational wealth and these aspects onto this nature. We are taught inherently to say to our kids, I don't have any kids. We're taught inherently to say, you got to go through the same shit I've been through, young buck. My uncle never said that shit to me. My father's side of the family never said that shit to me. They said, you're here now, you better learn. And then I remember every conversation that came from that was, my uncle would tell me a story, my uncles would tell me a story about what they went through at that aspect to get to that point, and that was my learning curve. That's what I had to learn from. How did I learn based upon it? I've learned on it based on the traumas. I learned how to interface my traumas and the issues that happened in my life and connect them to those aspects. And what I started noticing is that I could create a concurrent timeline rhythm, a concurrent rhythm to why when they were doing that, this was happening to me over here. So I started understanding these nexus points are all based upon the thought form that I had. And that's how I'm connected. So when I started understanding this aspect, I could start separating from the aspect of, even at that point in time, I got really, really dark around my 8th, 9th, and 10th grade years. I got really, really dark. I would say really, really shit. I would say shit that sounded normal to me, very insightful, very enlightening to myself, but it would seem very dark to others for me to say it. It sounded real, real dark to me. It sounded real, real dark to them, but it sounded like the brightest light ever set in the fucking room. Unconsciously, I know I was like, nigga, how you don't understand what the fuck I just said? But it was all the aspect of the life that I was living. Based upon my intentions within my life. I never got stuck within time loops. The only time loops that I got stuck in was the only time loop that I could say I got stuck in was the aspect of trying to please my parents, please my father, please my pops, based on his perception of what the world was. I was always stuck in this aspect of trying to please others based on their perception of what the world was. based on their perception of what the being and the aspects of what life was. I was always stuck in that aspect because I didn't fully understand that. I didn't have an understanding of what a natal chart was back then. I didn't have an understanding of what energy and currency was back then. I didn't have these understandings and concepts. So even when these things came up, I had nothing to feed or to cultivate that space. But this is the aspect of what humanity is. Humanity is a learning tool for you. Everything within humanity is a learning tool for you. Everything that you want to go against and you buck against is something that you need to be learning. Everything that you want to be standoffish about is something that you need to learn. I'm not saying learn as into interface, because then first you understand to create the visual in your mind. You create that visual in your mind of going through that space or going through that act in order to benefit yourself into tapping into that energy, understanding that the mind is all and the universe is being mental. So when you put yourself into that aspect, into this thought process, then you're able to create the program and then the sub-programs that can link and reinforce to the original program of yourself, of you tuning into the true you. This is how you become open and become humble to the heart. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of individuals that are they get their channels, they're getting this information, but the way the information is coming through to them is based on an unhealed aspect. So when it comes down, it feeds a trauma. So when they get the information, it serves them a purpose, but it doesn't help them grow. They'll say the same shit for fucking 15 years. They'll say the same shit for 10 years. They'll say the same shit every single time that you come to them, because that has now become their inherent purpose. So if that's their inherent purpose, that's what they came down here to do. That's what they came down here to do. That's not for you to sit there and say, nah, but you wrong. And why the fuck is you arguing with them? Your truth does not need to be argued. The truth does not need to be argued of yourself. Your actions do not need to be explained to ones that do not need to understand it. If they're on your level, they're in your space, they're on your frequency, they'll understand why you did it when you tell them, I did this because of this. This allows you to be able to accept a question and answer it with your truth. I don't have to explain benefits of my shit other than saying always you have to be at this level. You got to be on that side to understand it. You got to be here to understand this. There's people right there. I met up with an old friend when I first got back in town. It was like, yo, what you been up to? Call me by one of my old names. I love the old names. I miss the old names. So many memories. But he was looking at me. He was like, yo, nigga, you got locks? No, nigga, you got, nigga, is that a choker? Nigga, is that a shark tooth around your neck? Nigga, why you got a pentagram, nigga? That's so you on that voodoo shit, ain't you? I was like, sure. Because in my mind, my program, my perspective, from my truth, nigga, I'm very heavy into the spirit. It benefited me for him to say it. So no matter, I said, yeah. He was like, damn, man, I remember you was always talking some deep shit, but I didn't know you went to that level, went to that space. So he started saying things that were within that space. I had a conversation with somebody 2 months prior, same archetype of conversation. Like, oh damn, nigga, I heard you was into that voodoo shit, man. Said yeah. Said the same year. Yep. He was like, man, yep, man, and then he was like, all he could say is what he could think that would trigger me to say something else. He was like, man, your mother I remember your mother and your pops, and he was saying all these aspects of an older self of me. He was saying all of these aspects of my older self of me that I've long buried, and use those ashes to create new avenues for myself. So he kept saying these things to me, and he was like, "Yeah, man." He's like, "Yo, man, yeah, man. I remember, and like, he was trying to attach my story to his. It put something on me that was not me. So he was like, "Yeah, man. I remember I was lost out in these streets, man, and then, man, I turned my life over to Jesus, turned my life over to God, man. I ain't trying to force you to do anything, but man, like, he there for you." And he gave me the whole story. I was like, and all I kept saying was like, "Yeah, you're right. He is there for me. God's there for me." I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. God is there for me." Because I've learned to transition and submit my light to the attributes of the ideal space. Because he acknowledged me by Charles. Or actually, he acknowledged me by King. Yeah, he acknowledged me by King. So I allow my light to go down and to create that astral body, that body of light, and became him. So he could comfortably speak everything that he wanted to speak, display all of this energy, all of his emotion, say everything that he wanted to say. We talked for about 45 minutes. I just allowed him to speak. I allowed him to speak his truth. I allowed him to speak his piece, what he came to terms with, and everything within him. And then it allowed me to gauge the situation, observe, and then know exactly when to speak. Because if I was not within that space and I went into that space as Papa Luci, my ego that has died at that space can now resurrect based on the energy of Papa Luci. So me stepping down to that space as Papa Luci and allowing that energy to go in there half-assed, basically, filling up that space, my ego had to fill the other half of that space. So now I become argumentative. Nah, what you think about this? Nah. I allowed him to speak. I allowed him to speak his piece. I said a couple of words. I said, "That's good for you. I'm glad that you found something that can bring you into focus and into balance. Maybe we can chop it up next time about some other stuff." 4 weeks ago, that was 2 months. That was 2 months ago. Three and a half weeks ago. 3.5 weeks ago, my man hit me up again. His grandmother had transitioned. He was lost, and like, why would God do this? And he asked all those normal questions somebody would ask. Why would this happen? And why would this happen? Man, I just want to talk to her one more time. Man, she was gone too soon. He was in the level of the spirit, because the spirit led him back to me. This is how you understand when you start interfacing with your energy. The spirit led him back to me. We had another conversation. I told him that his grandmother, she simply transitioned. I gave him a little aspects of what death truly is. She's always going to be with you. I broke this down to him. She's always with you. She's always been with you. Saturday, July 4th. That right after the lecture, he gave me a call. He hit me up. And he was like, "Yo, I just had this crazy ass dream. I know you into the spiritual work. Can you like interpret it? Help me interpret it." broke down his dream. I was like, your grandma was telling you it's time for you to move your grandmother has moved on and transitioned. In order for you to reach to her, you got to come to that next level. And then I broke it down to him. I said, yo, I'm going out of town this week. Me and my cousins, we're going out of town. I'll holler back at you when I get back in town. We set up that dialogue. I was texting him throughout my trip, except for one day when I silenced everything. I needed that real time to myself because I got a real deep download. So I needed time it was like, this is one of the biggest downloads and channels that I've received at like coming into another space. So I was like, shut everything off. I'm still in that space. This information that I'm bringing out now, this is based upon some of that information. So I'm having that conversation with him. And that was his enlightenment. His infrastructure had to fall in order for him to come to a sense of humility to accept the gift that was being brought to him. Remember, skulls equate to skill. Death is knowledge. Death doth doorway to knowledge. So that his grandmother's transition was the gift, or that skull was that gift into coming into his true heart or his true mind or his true self. The time loop that everybody else was in, he didn't experience. He came into the aspect there's always going to be that grieving period. That's the natural aspect to yourself, the grieving period. But when you're in these periods within yourself, these loops, what are you learning from the period? What are you taking in? Every aspect is an aspect to learn from. I broke down to him your grandmother. Think about the aspects of your grandmother. Write those down, and then we'll go over those aspects about your grandmother. And then those are going to be key points as we keep going forward. That's the key. When you're bringing down this new information, when you're bringing down that new light, when you're bringing down that new information, and it's allowing your heart to clear and your space to clear, and it's clearing you out, and you coming into a new state of enlightenment or a new space. When that comes to that surface and you're able to project it and start speaking it out to yourself, your interpretation of you applying that information, that knowledge, that light to yourself. When you're speaking that out, you're going into the aspect to challenge the natural core, you're now initiating chaos. You are a chaos being. You are now initiating chaos. From that chaos creates new seeds. From those new seeds create new growth. That new growth creates those new trees, creates that new fruit, the new nuts, that new nourishment. That's all you have to do. When somebody is humble enough to receive nourishment, or they need nourishment and the other shit ain't working no more, that's when the spirit leads them to that nourishment. From that nourishment, it leads them back to the original source of where that nourishment came from. So I don't have to, and this is the aspect of programming yourself to always be in the space where you need to be at and to do exactly what you need to do. Put in that necessary work. But you have to go through that shadow work process. This is the biggest thing. You got to go through that shadow work process. You got to go through the process. There's no skipping these fucking steps. Because the results may vary. The results are always going to vary. What works for me may not work for you. And it's all based upon your intention. I can give an entire spell to have you laying up with Obatala, to have you laying up with Oshun, to have you laying up with Kali, to have you laying up with one of the gods, to initiate, bring them down, and you can have the greatest spirit sex. If you haven't had spirit sex, greatest shit ever. But if you're not open to the intention of what it entails, then it's not going to work for you. That's the aspect of learning. Why doesn't it work for me? Why can't I compete with this? Because it's based upon your confidence. Every trauma and every trigger that comes up is showing you something. And it's when you take that basic aspect of you looking at your first 7 chakras and understanding there's 7 more above this and there's 7 more above this because there's multiple realms to your auric field. If that space, you understand that there's higher levels to it, and how the interface with it becomes more and more deeper. It becomes deeper into an aspect that you have to break yourself away from based upon humanity. You understand that once you are rooted, once your root chakra, your root energy, that Sifra is rooted within your standing within that truth and grounded within truth, grounded within your knowledge, grounded within your soul. This opens up the confidence of your soul in stepping forward in what you are rooted in into your truth. This allows your power source or your solar plexus to come into play, so you can now initiate the power to keep yourself confident and to keep yourself grounded. This allows you to open up of your heart the path, the green light to go forward and do what you need to be doing. Put in that fucking work. This allows you to speak into existence the necessary aspects that you need to do, that you need to speak to set that chaos and set that tone, to create that environment. That now your third eye, because your first eye is your nexus point back here. That's why you say you have 4 eyes. Your nexus point is your first eye. That's the pineal gland. This is why this is your third eye. These eyes are inherently flawed. They only see what they're programmed to see. That's when you look at the sigil of Lucifer. The sigil of Lucifer is simply, they say the light bearer. The sigil of Lucifer is the optic nerves and the setup of the optic nerves in your mind, in your head. That's why the light that you bear is based upon what you see. But that's only based upon what your third eye creates and what comes into your first eye. That's just deeper than just a motherfucker saying, yeah, my third eye wide open, but their first eye is shut the fuck down. They haven't went through the process to cleanse this eye. So now everything that's coming through their nexus point is augmented based on what they envision. So when they create something, all they're seeing is the trauma. These aspects are those shit that you gotta fucking deal with. And when you think about it like this, if these are the aspects within the higher realms that I gotta deal with, I have no time for the basic mundane bullshit in humanity. Why would I allow myself? Question you ask yourself in the mirror. Why would I allow myself to put myself in a position where I'm serving something that's not giving me my true power, that's not giving me my true currency, that will not help me balance that $1,600? And in the understanding that I have already spent $1,600, that's spent. That's my expenses, that's spent. It doesn't exist. Because if I'm stuck on this process, if I'm stuck on the routine of making $1,600, I'll never take the time to actually build this 400 sitting right here in this account. So if I can't do these two right here, make this a subconscious program, and then the sub program is always to save, how can I build anything else within my life and within my space? How can I allow myself to be challenged by anything else into creating my entity or my LLC or myself, my other bodies of light to make the moves that I need to make? How can I do any of that shit if I'm stuck within paradigms based upon humanity? If I'm stuck within triggers and traumas and symbols based upon my humanity that I have not yet learned? How can How can I become stronger if I don't face what makes me weak? I can't kill it if I'm not facing it. It'll just come right back around to something else. This goes into the aspects of the mental illnesses and addictions and all of these aspects. All of these things can be inherently healed by tapping into yourself and understanding yourself. Being shut down fundamentally because of hypersexualization, that's a tool that they use against you. You got to tap into that higher shit. And the only way to tap into that higher shit is to remove the truth. You have to become transparent and devoid of the humanity and what it is. I said earlier, like I'm at a point now where I'm interfacing with 3 or 4 imminent energies, archetypes at a time now. These are outside of the aspects of the natural work, the spirits that I work with on a regular basis with some family members that have transitioned and have attained their new names and attained their new space. And I've allowed them to move on, and I've allowed them to move on into the higher spaces, because this is another big aspect. And I had a big conversation with this with one of my peoples, and they were like, so what are your takes on spirits not transitioning from this plane? I was like, they haven't been let go of. They haven't been let go of. That's why they maintain in this space. Some do not have the ability to go to the next level. That's why when you look at, when I looked at when Nipsey Hussle transitioned, I was like, that nigga did God level shit while he was here. The only way he could have done that type of shit if he was a god or he was on a higher realm. So holding on to the memory of a human archetype of something disables my ability to actually allow it to go to the next level so I can tap into it and go to the next level. These are the aspects when it comes to family members that come back through, all of these aspects. You have to learn to let go of these aspects, or you're going to be stuck within the time loop, similar to the other motherfucker stuck on the other end of the polarity, the other end of the extreme. I'm extremely within the spirit. But in order for me to understand to be extreme within the spirit, there are things that I can learn from the fundamentals based upon religion. Through the allegories, through the stories, through the mythos. Because all of those are fragments. So I got on end of the extreme, the breakdown, and the devoid of spirituality. And on the other end, I have my spirituality. In between is the fragments that once I successfully put these things together, I now create my bridge or create my first level of my foundation. As I keep going up, new things are challenging me on those levels. As above, so below. So the shit that challenges me down here is next to nothing. There's still little so it's like I don't have to spend my time. That's why you will never hear me give you a full in-depth lecture about white people. You'll never hear me give you a lecture on that shit. Ever. You'll never hear me give you a lecture on white people and white supremacy, because where I'm at, that shit don't exist. And I can thoroughly explain why it doesn't exist. It's based upon genetics. Their paradigm is based upon the intellectual understanding of the 7 original races or the 7 original bodies, archetypes, which were originated from us. That was the original aspect of us. We had a deeper understanding that there was 7 original bodies of light, which were broken down into the 7 chakra systems. On one aspect, when you're studying it, those 7 systems now embodied throughout When you look at the Kabbalah and you look at the Ciphras, that's why they line up and they're the astroplanetary bodies. And then you start understanding the astrology and you look at the astral bodies of the astrology of each sign. And then you break that down. Then the way to get into that, you can look at the gematria, or you can look at numerology or study astrology. And then that's when you come into your natal chart. Damn, my natal chart is exact with everything that I've been doing. They're all tools. But if you stuck on white supremacy, how the fuck you gonna tap into the tool? White supremacy is the devolved intellectual aspect of your science, devoid of the power source needed to make it actual supreme. Black Lives Matter is an aspect of the civil rights movement for the LGBT community under blackface. It's antimatter. The only way antimatter can be put into a form, or those particles can be put into a form, is you put a charge to it. You've always been in charge. You've always been in charge of your life. You've always been in charge. You've always been in charge. Every single key point in your life was based upon the knowledge that you have obtained. And now that you've come to a certain level, now that you've come to this level, the information that you are getting now via download channel, hell, even consultation and counseling with me, listening to all the different content from all the different viewpoints from the vantage points of consciousness, that is all the shit that you used to learn from, not to follow. Because Bobby Hemmett broke that shit down, that every single organization organized for black people is under the Terrorist Act. And I looked that shit up. They're all under there. The Anunnakis, the Kemites, the Moors, Masons, all that shit's under terrorist acts. They're all under the Terrorist Act bill. They're all considered terrorists. That's why are you following anything outside of the aspect of learning from it? That's what study all, follow none. That whole mantra is study all, follow none. I can go very thorough in all of the information that I put out. If there's a book for it, I give you the book. I give you all of that information because I don't want you to follow me. Following that same parenting thought process of Bobby Hemmett, I don't want you to follow me. Following that same thought that ushered into parenting with Brother Panic, I don't want you to follow me. If you at this level, this resonates with you, is hitting you, is making you move, is making you dance, is activating that soul, welcome to your this lifetime's initiation. You got some work to do. I want you to surpass me in the physical of information and knowledge. I want you to surpass me in that aspect of the intellectual property, because I'm traveling into new paradigms. So that's that very much needed aspect of you transitioning and you going to the next level. You're needed for a certain purpose. Those purposes are led through by the activation of those traumas, and that's ushering you in to go to that new paradigm and that new shift. You can do one or two things. You can do one or two things at this very moment, because it's happening anyway. You can embrace what is happening. You can embrace what is happening. Allow it to happen. Chiron is in retrograde right now. It's the aspect of bringing up things that you have not once dealt with. So for a lot of people that are going through their processes, there's things that you have not dealt with yet that are coming to the surface once again. That's what the retrograde in Chiron does, because it brings up old relationships, old dealings. And I'm not speaking just on relationships in the physical aspect of you were with somebody or friendships. I'm talking about in the aspects of the information or that nexus point or that thought form that was created based on you being within that space that you have not dealt with. It's a very big learning process. So you got one or two choices. Allow it to consume you, possess you, consume you, burn you, destroy you. And from that destruction, how are you going to go forward? Your infrastructure got to fall first. What you were used to got to fall away. What you got comfortable in got to fall away. That shit got to fucking end. That cycle has ended. That's why if you're in this space now and you're wondering why things aren't coming back together, it's because you haven't, that cycle is over. That cycle of thought, that cycle of acts, that time loop, that continuum is gone. The only thing that exists within that time loop and that continuum is your thought about it. The only thing that exists for me about white supremacy is that I've already created the entire substructure in my mind of why it doesn't benefit me and how it can benefit me. What can I get from it while I'm here? This is the thought process stepping forward. This is that mindset you got to be in. Because once you start working truly in the spirit to yourself, your spiritual, becoming your spiritual self, your higher self, tapping into those energies, not walking away, allowing what comes up to come up so you can deal with it. Once you start doing this, it all makes sense. You understand why that friend, that family member did what they did. One very big thing for me was I remember one of my earlier lectures that I did via my Facebook Live when I was doing my Facebook Lives. I did the generation of us. I did generational curses, the generation of us. And I disclosed the aspects of my uncle being an alcoholic. A lot of my mother's three brothers, they were alcoholics. And I spoke my piece on why I feel the way I feel about alcoholics and drunk drivers and the deaths that ensued and everything that happened. What I initiated within myself after putting that out there was I had to deal with it. I had to deal with that. I had to deal with bringing that out there. After I brought that out, I remember conversations, whole ensued arguments with my mother, my moms and my pops. And they would be arguing, and my pops would always say that one of my uncles was a pedophile. Said that shit every fucking time. And my mom would get so angry and so irate. Don't say that about my brother, because she was defending him based upon the brother aspect, that blood aspect. But she knew that truth. My father went into deep aspect. I remember my pops had a conversation with me that next day, that a couple of days after that, like the third or fourth or 15th time or 20th time that he said it. And he was like, yeah, I remember going over to your uncle's house, and my cousin, he would tell me about my cousin. My cousin's like 2 years younger than me. My cousin would always bring over his girl and her friends. My uncle would be there, give him alcohol, weed, give him the fixes. So it was cool to go to my uncle's house. I never understood. My pops would never let me go over to my uncle. I was like, you nah, what you going over there for? I never had a tasting reason to even go over there. I was doing my hustle and doing my own shit. And then I was like, oh. And I remember I went into a trance, and I remember riding with my grandfather. I ride with my grandfather, and my grandfather and my pops, we were going to the store doing some shit. We rode out, we were riding out, and my grandfather would be looking out the window, and it'd be like either the young girls or some young girl walking by, running, working out, or some young girls. And he'd be yelling out the window at him, catcalling him. And then that trance linked to the thought process of my uncle doing the same thing. And because they didn't acknowledge it, what my pops was doing, the spirit led my pops. My pops is heavily fucking Catholic, mind you. When my father initiated that conversation, that argument, and it ensued, the breakdown with my mother defending my uncle based on what he did led me into when I was doing my studies, when I was at NYU doing grabbing my psychology shit, it led me to that nexus point of why I inherently wanted to study psychology, because I wanted to understand my mind, my triggers, the things that were happening with me. I wanted to understand the human mind. That was the first wave of my learning. The second wave of my learning was visiting those same points, and then I could see more. And I could go through those same points and see more. That's the learning aspect. To observe the time loops. There's niggas out here right now that will be talking about the same shit doing it. While I was down at the beach, I walked by a little white boy with a little curly hair. See the little mix in him. Was sitting there with his skateboard, Pink Floyd shirt on, little holes in his jeans. And all I could think was like, damn, like that was a moment of a time loop for me. I was like, damn, I remember that's the same thing I saw when I was younger. That was the same thing that I looked at. I was like, nigga, that's white people shit. And then I looked at myself now and it's like that same expression of what is their spirit is the same expression as what I do with my soul. Everything I do is an enhancement and an expression of my soul speaking. So every lock, every color on every lock, the way I wear my hat, the way I wear my bandanas and my head wraps, the way that I wear my jewels, the way that I carry my wand, the way that I do everything that I do is an aspect of something that I inherently already learned at some point in time. I'm just now switching from conscious. What was unconscious is now conscious, and what is now conscious is now unconscious. It no longer has any light. It no longer has any power. That's the aspect of when you're stepping past this shit talking about white supremacy. Why does white supremacy exist? It's not because these motherfuckers in power, because they're not. It's because you are giving them power. The reason that something exists, those particles are structured within that thought form, is because you continue to give it power. You're not dealing with it to the extent that you need to deal with it. So you find conduits to block it. So you find conduits to block it so you don't interface with it. So now it's over here behind another block, but now it's still feeding. You just gave it a bid. Your addictions, your insecurities, your imbalances. You just gave it a bib to feed from you. Now that you came to this certain point, now you're sitting there like, let me put a bib on you so you can eat more neatly. That's the aspect whenever you think about this burning house aspect, motherfuckers want equality in a space. How can you have equality in a space that's inherently flawed? That's the same aspect. You just want to put a bib on them so they can eat from you without taking in your emotions. There's a book that I just ordered. There's a book that I just ordered. There's a book that I just ordered. It was actually redid by Bobby Hemmett. Let me go to it. I think I still have it pulled up. No, I don't have it pulled up anymore. I have it pulled up. It was a book we narrated. It was basically talking about the feeding of how they feed from you without taking in your emotions. That's the aspect that you have to learn. How to feed without taking in the emotional aspect. Without taking in the emotions and the despair. Down here at this level, one thing that I do this is another aspect why when I went plant-based, that I didn't have an understanding of why I did it. That 9 times out of 10, you would think to yourself, I don't want to feed from anything that has to go through torture to be hurt. But you unconsciously do that shit every single fucking day. You see niggas standing at the bus stop and you drive by, the first thing that comes out of you look at them and you laugh because they sitting there in the hot ass sun and you in your car. Somewhere in your mind, you look at that. No matter how you react, either you react like, damn, that sucks, I remember when I was there, or you laugh because of wherever they were at. Either way, there's a polarity. You get stuck within that space. You're feeding from that space. You're unconsciously doing it. You unconsciously feed from that space. You unconsciously feed from the thought form that's based upon anger, based upon the imbalance. You naturally feed from it. That's why whenever you get into a certain space, when a high stress situation, I don't stress shit. I know niggas right now that are fucking 3 years younger than me in that aspect for themselves. They're 3 years younger than me and got a beard full of gray hairs. Got wrinkles. They don't have a youthful glow to them. They look tired. They look tired. They look weakened. They look sad. No matter what they do, they look sad. They look weakened. They don't look healthy. And I look at the things as the observer. I look at the things that they talk about. I listen to the things that they listen to. I listen to the things that they speak on. I said, damn, they're feeding their own stress. They're feeding their own anger. They're feeding their own animosity. Since they're feeding from those spaces, they stay within that space. What was different between now and then is I'm no longer there to feed with. I'm no longer at that trough feeding with them. I'm no longer indulging within that space with them. And that's that separation aspect. You're going to come into this separation when you notice that separation is going to be needed. There's going to be certain things that just don't fucking peak to you. It has nothing to do with you. And that becoming more comfortable in yourself becoming more comfortable in yourself in that aspect that you come into them higher planes and that higher reality of yourself, you start understanding why you now, since it's no longer on your face, you're no longer looking through your trauma, you're no longer looking through the dramas, you're no longer looking through all this aspect, looking through these tinted glasses, you see it for exactly what it is. And now that you see it for exactly what it is, now you can navigate away from it and learn how to cycle your energy into better things. You know how to balance that account. You know how to charge your energy. As I always say, this is abundance. This is abundance. This is prosperity. This is wealth. Knowledge is infinite. These things are infinitely within inside you. The more you get to know yourself, that's one aspect of understanding. That the aspect is everything is cool. Everything is based upon that same knowledge and going forward. But you got to go through those steps, or you're gonna be stuck as that 45-year-old, that 36, that 35-year-old, that 50-year-old, hell, even that 31-year-old, that 29-year-old, or that 35-year-old that keeps going to the club with the teens, trying to fit into a space that no longer serves you. That's what these time loops are. Every cifra on that tree of life is reflected by the knowledge that you put into it. So if your cifra of earth and humanity is based on trying to build equality and this space is inherently flawed, then all of your knowledge naturally becomes inherently flawed. You're always going to search for something inherently flawed to reinforce your existence. It gotta fall. Babylon gotta burn. This is that moment of time where we do the question and answers as I give the spill for everything that's going on in the life of the God of Alchemist LLC. Season 3 does start again. We're going back to season 3. Season 3, we're doing that something new. Season 3 is going to be a 2-part show. Season 3, the podcast, God Our Podcast. God Our Podcast, 6 a.m. every Tuesday morning. We dropping that new, because only 2 days is the only day to rise. Only one day matters. Only one person matters. That's you, because everything is a reflection of this day and everything is a reflection of you. Intertwined, and as you grow, as you go forward. God Our Podcast, we're getting into new earth energy. We're getting into the new earth energy aspects. I'm going to break that down. And then 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time via my Facebook Live. You ain't got a Facebook, I'm sorry. I will start downloading those videos, but it will be going into my Patreon page. So the God Hour show will be a Facebook Live exclusive. And for further views will be within the Patreon. I'm going to start gravitating things into my Patreon page, onto the God of Alchemist website page. And it will be locked in based on, after I get a certain amount in there, it's going to be locked into a subscription to lock that energy in, because we're going to go very deep into those aspects. The God Hour Podcast Edition, the God Hour Show, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Facebook Live exclusive. Papa's Nightcap, readings, Q&A, interviews. I already got the idea for the interviews. The people I want to bring onto the show first. Already got that locked in. Already got it locked in. Wednesday, still doing 7:45. 7:45 because we're a quarter past crazy, but we ain't all the way. We ain't already loped out. 7:45. Meditating every Monday through Thursday. Facebook. That's a Facebook Live. It's a Facebook Live. It's gonna be a Facebook Live. That's always Facebook Live, IG exclusive. Wednesday nights. No, not Wednesday nights. Not Thursday nights. Thursday nights I'm thinking about adding another show for Thursday nights, but Saturday nights will be an exclusive to my IG. Papa Luci _666 will be an exclusive Papa after hours service will be an exclusive to IG, and I will be following that same paradigm. That exclusive is for IG. For later viewing will be on the Patreon, but on that one it will be a recap of the week of everything that we discussed based on the podcast, based on the lecture, and that will have the more readings on there, more readings, uh, more Q&A, interviews on that. So Saturday nights locked in at 9 p.m. on my IG, 7 p.m. locked in on get locked in on the Facebook Live on Rock Hollow Nijas. Friday nights, we got the lectures. Tuesdays, we drop the podcast. Monday through Thursday, what I am doing, one second, I'm about to go pee. All right, back. Gotta call Alchemist. So we got that Monday to Thursday. What I'm doing is I'm preparing for the next shift. The next shift that I'll be doing is going into the live lecture aspect. The live lecture aspects, in-person aspects of the lectures. I'm still going through the process of studying the programs and the paradigms within this space. The people saying that you can't say certain things and go to certain places. But yeah, stay tuned for that. That's my first live lecture I'm planning and setting for September 13th. Kind of like the anniversary date when I first actually started the YouTube channel. So it's going to be like that, the Reaping 2 type aspect. September 13th is going to be the first live in-person lecture. Stay tuned for details. Stay tuned for details of basically where it's going to be at, how it's going to be put together, and all that aspect. It's going to be a very, very big movement. Spiritual baths are now available. The more traditional baths are $30. It's an entire kit. Let me pull up one of my kits real quick. This is one of the spiritual bath kits right here. This one is for abundance and prosperity. This is an abundance and prosperity kit. In the kit, it includes, I know y'all can't see that because of the light. In this kit, it includes, I'm going to pull out each thing and tell you what each thing is. In each kit that I include, that I build your spiritual bath, you will always get a sage stick encompassed and charged basically towards what it is. This one's for abundance, so this is a very good clearance one. A specially curated and prepared bag of herbs, curated and put together by me through that channel, through that deep aspect, and a special blend of salts that have been specially charged and set in entombment. When I put the bag together, get a bag of this salt like this, little bag of salt, and then this is the $30. It also comes when I vacuum seal your bag. In your bag, depending on the conversation we have about like what you want your bag to do, your empowerment of your bath, I put in the literature not only to how to set your bath and the best way to do the bath and the what cycle to do it under and all that aspect, but I also put literature based upon, I'll ask you a question like, what resonates with you? And I'll put like an aspect, like if it's like a traditional bag, the $30 bag, I put in literature that helps you to be able to in tune with the information in that bag. that information. So for this bag right here, I'll put in aspects of tapping into different goddesses and dapping into that. With this bag, also the $45 bag, when you choose that $45 package, this is a special blend of curated salts infused. This one's infused with CBD, and I also infuse them with DMT, certain other different herbs to enhance that flavor. In your bag. You get this right here. This is a special bag. And I also do teas. I do the specialty herbal teas. And for $60, I do a curated bag for specialty rituals. For the and then you get the $60 bag for the curated, the specialty herbs, the specialty balance, the special herbs. You get, let's say you want to interface with, Oshun. You actually want to become Oshun, interface with Oshun, interact with Oshun. When I put that bath together, I put together the invoking ritual for invoking Oshun or invoking Tiamat or invoking whatever deity it is that you want to invoke and interface with. And I put that literature into your bag, the sigils, anything that's needed for that in that $60 package. I also add a tea into the $60 package. The tea is optional. You don't have to drink the tea. The herbs within the tea, you can take those herbs and actually either burn them if you have a cauldron or incense burner, burn them in there, or you can sip them before or after or during your meditation while you're in the bath. So yeah, that's that. The $60 package. Alchemy, myshopify.com, of course, for new prints coming and new merch coming soon. And yeah, that's the move. That's the move and the motive. What else? Yeah. So stay tuned, stay locked. We're doing a lot of transitioning, taking it to the next level. Wherever you're at in your space, in your journey, in your path, where you're at right now, this is the most fertile in fruits of your labor in your learning. That's the only way that you advance. That's the only way that you go to the next level. If not, you're going to repeat semesters. But yeah, stay tuned. Tomorrow, Saturday. No, not Saturday. Stay tuned Tuesday, 6 a.m. And we will continue building. We will continue rising. We will continue doing what we need to do to get ourselves to where we need to get to. I love y'all. We love us. Asha.